Hi Mark, how you doing?
Good.
Great to talk to you, mate. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time.
It's all right.
I spoke to Marie sorting this out last week, and she mentioned you're in the studio. Are you working on? Is it Saturday Suffering Fools, your newest project in the pipeline?
Yeah, that's what we're doing in there.
So we'll see something come out. Have you got a date for when we'll see something?
I don't have a date, but the month have it ready. So hopefully that'll be still the case. I think May is. Yeah, it should be ready.
Cool. And what I read, you're going back to explore some of the stuff you did with Short Cool Ones with the great Chris Wilson some years back.
Yeah, it's kind of a different slant on the that sort of sound, I guess. But being that we've got sax and sax says on some of them, like it's going to be there's a horn section on a few of the tracks. So, going for kind of like an old chess recording sort of horn section sound. But yeah, I mean, I love, all that, anything that sort of stems from the blues. I love, jazz, country, soul, it all comes from the blues. So it's kind of a pretty, people think of blues, I guess they think of, pretty straight traditional, but there's a lot of offshoots.
Hard to follow up such a days like these with such a great record, mate, and still getting lots of airplay and people saying great things about it. But the title track was just a killer. In my humble opinion, one of the best things you've done for quite a while.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much. Well, I guess that song has sort of steered me, towards kind of the roots a little bit more, and kind of a bluesy feel, that song, and it's almost like a modern, it's like neo blues, I suppose you call it. You wanted to try to do something, but on this record, it's definitely kind of an answer to Days Like These, which was me sort of, it's a big sort of a revisit to genre that I'm very attached to. So.
If I can take you way back in time, mate, the Innocent Bystanders in Perth, way back, Perth had a really bustling live music scene back in those days, didn't it?
It did.
And you were sort of discovered by the Angels back at that time, is that right?
Well, the Angels drummer, who's come from New Zealand only a couple of years before that. He was in bands over there, one band in particular called Citizen Band, which is really well known in New Zealand. And took up the throne playing for the Angels, and I think he had already, had sort of dreams or aspirations to want to manage something as well, because I think he did a bit of that back in New Zealand, so or at least had something to do with managing the band that he was in New Zealand. So he always had those tendencies, and just looking for the right vehicle, I suppose. But they were very helpful to us, as was Jimmy Barnes when we first started. Did a lot of supports. We used to do a lot of supports with a lot of bands back then. I mean, supporting is a great way to get exposure. Sort of play to someone else's audience.
Yeah, and that was Brett Eccles, of course, and he had quite a hand in the Injectors too, didn't he?
Well, I mean, he was the first one to, when we started doing that, it was actually out of the remnants of Innocent Bystanders after the singer and songwriter decided to pull the pin on and make the record that we were kind of, I guess we were like edging towards making that first record, and he decided that he wanted to make the record with session people and stuff, and take a different course. So I guess from those remnants of the band, decided to put another band together, and all the pointers sort of pointed at me to sing and write the song. So I just kind of took up the slack, I suppose, and that was when the Injectors were formed, and name named after the bass player, actually, John Deisel. That's where we got Johnny Deisel from, and the injectors was just a reference to his little spawn that he was, bringing up kids at the time, very small ones. That was a bit of a joke that someone made and just kind of stuck, and that was it. And we were playing one night a week, and a lot of people would come into town, and it was an after-hours sort of bar that we used to play in, so it was pretty much the only place to go to if you wanted to see live music, if you'd just done a concert or a gig yourself, and it was very close to where all the concerts and stuff were, because it was right in the smack middle of the town city, so we had a lot of people, come in, piss in our pockets, so to speak, after the show and say how great we were and stuff, and then we'd never hear from them again. Brent was the first person to actually follow through, and he called me up after he went back to Sydney and said, I want to help you guys get over to, Sydney and, so you can do some shows in front of, other people and blah, 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 and, he started planning it. The plan was do 9 shows a week when we first got to Sydney, and that's what we did for quite a few months. We played 9 shows every week.
That's working hard, mate.
Well, I think it was like normal, maybe 10 years before that, or maybe even 5, but even at that point in the late 80s, things were starting to quieten down a bit with the venues and stuff. A lot of the pubs were being refurbished and renovated and turned into boutique sort of beer places. And, it was just kind of the end of an era, and we got in on the very, very end of it, It's like, we just saw a little glimpse of what it might have been like back in the days of the Comb and Cutter and the Bondi Lifesaver and all that stuff. It's all legendary. It's all just kind of, I only know what I've been told about that sort of stuff because we missed out on all that. But still, we still managed to rustle up 9 shows. So that wasn't too bad.
It is stuff of legend indeed. I have very fond memories of seeing the Injectors with, you were out on tour with the Georgia Satellites, and you had Alvin Lee from 10 Years After with you, and that from a guy in the audience, that was an absolute treat. That must have been a treat for you as well.
It was, to be totally honest, I was like, who's Alvin Lee? It's a bit before my time. I was only, a twinkle in my dad died when all that happened, so, I had to sort of do a bit of homework, and it didn't take long. As soon as he walked in the room and plugged his guitar in to our rehearsal, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be fun, I was like, I was chuffed, straight away, and he was such a good guy, and, just kind of getting to talk to him, and, to him, like, the whole Woodstock thing was like, hey, it was like one blink of an eye, and now people, that's all they want to ask me about is Woodstock, but, he wasn't sort of, he was still pretty gracious about it, but you could tell he was like, he'd answered that question enough times a week, and a lot of people would come into town, and it was an after-hours sort of bar that we used to play in, so it was pretty much the only place to go to if you wanted to see live music, if you'd just done a concert or a gig yourself, and it was very close to where all the concerts and stuff were, because it was right in the smack.
And you went on to do some great things with Jimmy Barnes. I remember seeing you in the Freight Train Heart Tour, and being an Adelaide boy, I loved Jimmy's early band with Rob Riley and Mal Eastick, etc. And it was wonderful to see those Adelaide guys there. But you really gave the band a big shot in the arm. I remember the opening salvo of Driving Wheels on those shows were just fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good lineup, and it was quite a diverse sort of lineup. I have to say, Dave Amato, who's an American guitar player, kind of more sort of played with people like Ted Nugent and REO Speedwagon and stuff like that. Totally different approach to playing guitar to me, but still a very, very solid, good player and a great singer. And, he put his all into every show. And, Jimmy had a really, really, really good band back then. And Peter Kickel, just, the hardest piano player I've ever met. And, Michael Hagerty and Tony Brock on drums. It was a big sound, definitely a big sound.
Actually, just harking back to the Angels, I spoke to Bobby Spencer recently, and we were talking about Beyond Salvation and what a fantastic job Terry Manning did, and I think that the stuff he did with you on Hep Fidelity, the sounds that guy gets, he is a genius.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's always been a bit of a boffin, I guess, and started off very young. He was like 17 when he started sneaking in, getting in on some sessions with Stax. And, we're talking Al Green and the Staple Singers, and, Otis Redding and, people like that. And he was just a bug on the wall then, but, he's one of these guys that just, he's managed to kind of be around all these great people and he's got great ideas. He plays a bit of everything. He's just very handy. And, he just knows when something is, he knows how to, pick a groove and get the best out of people, I suppose, and that's really what a producer is about. And he was the right man for the job when it comes to doing our first record, because when I think about it, we could have been put with, many producers, and I'm sure something else would have come out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, to a large degree, I think most producers probably would have tried to, especially being that it was 88, where everything was very overblown. That sound of the 80s was very sort of, big stadium sound, Def Leppard and all that. So we might have been turned into, something that we might have regretted, something very overblown and, and instead Harry just kind of said, told everyone to piss off. and, good that we recorded down in Memphis because it's quite far from the record industry. The most of the record industry is in Los Angeles and New York, as you can imagine, and Memphis is kind of it's off the beaten track, and that's why I think people like Terry kind of likes working down there, because you get left alone,
Yeah. No distractions from doing his thing.
Well, it's about 110 degrees every day down there, so, it's too hot for most people.
So being in a studio out of that's probably a good place to be.
Well, it was definitely the place to be, but, yeah, definitely, something I look back on, and I think that Terry was definitely the right guy for the first record.
And great news for folks in Adelaide. You're heading our way for the Fringe, mate.
Yeah, it's something I've never done before. And Adelaide is, when I describe Adelaide to people I don't know much about it, I say it's kind of a sleepy town, like Perth, I suppose, but it's got a real festival kind of, thread running through it, and kind of a good thing because venue-wise, there's not an awful lot of venues left in Adelaide, but thankfully there's a lot of festivals every year, and the Guitar Festival now that's sprung up and doing very well, and WOMAD and things like that. It's just, the Day on the Greens, of course, up in the Barossa. Thankfully, festivals have brought me to town quite a few times over the last, few years.
And it's good. Adelaide has been a little slow on the uptake with all that, but it's good to see it's and the ones that have happened, like the Guitar Festival, etc., have done so well that they've become entrenched and ongoing things, which is really good.
Yeah, and that's as long as we have annual things like that, it's good. It keeps things going.
And you're doing the solo show in Adelaide?
Yeah, the solo show is. I haven't done one for a while, so in Adelaide that is. So I'm looking forward to being able to stretch out a bit, just exercise a few different, muscles that I do when I'm doing a solo show. It's kind of a different approach for me. You get to hear a lot of things that you wouldn't normally hear, so that's what's cool about the solo thing.
Actually, one thing I love about your solo shows, and a lot of guys are out doing the acoustic unplugged thing, the laid back thing, but there's nothing laid back about your acoustic shows, mate. You hammer that guitar.
Well, I kind of eased into it. I guess when I first approached it, it was like, okay, this, the acoustic thing, I suppose, this is how you do it. You kind of, and the first thing was like refusing to sit on a stool or on a seat. I was like, no, I can't sit down. It doesn't feel right. And then gradually as I stuck my toe in the pool, it was like, well, hang on, this doesn't have to be folky or quiet or, whatever. I can, you can still rock out, Who says you can't? So, having said that, I do enjoy the fact that I can. A lot of the times when I do, especially in a Spiegel tent sort of atmosphere, you can hear, a pin drop. And so I can do a lot of songs that I sometimes can't do in front of a noisy crowd because you just can't hear it. So it gives me a full spectrum to do everything, Gives me a full spectrum to do everything,
And I, certainly every time I've seen you play, you seem to be having the time of your life. But even more so when you're doing that, is it just the extra adrenaline, the extra focus? But you really do seem to be having the time of your life.
Well, I think the enjoyable thing for me is, I mean, I love doing the band shows, and when we can get, you know, when I engage with the band and engage with the crowd, and you've got that multi-layer of engagement going on, it's awesome. So I guess with the solo thing, it's just, the crowd and myself. So when I get the engagement going on with that, it's exciting because, I feel like there's nothing between me and the crowd. We become one thing. So that's pretty, that is exhilarating.
Oh, it's a good thing too. Should be more of it indeed. All right, mate, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time. It's an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Thanks for having me at the bar.